Folks, right now while you're sitting there watching this, a cold front is barreling through the Midwest tonight, and the worst of it is time to hit between midnight and 4 in the morning when your whole family is sound asleep. And here's the part that stopped me cold. When I first pulled up the models this morning, West Virginia just had its first confirmed damaging tornado in over 10 years. Not Oklahoma, not Texas, not Kansas, West Virginia. On top of that, 2 massive storm systems are on a collision course as we speak, and when they merge later this week, meteorologists are using a word you do not hear very often, cyclogenesis, and I am going to explain exactly what that means for 40 million of you east of the Rockies. Before we dive in real quick, think about where you are right now, because this forecast is going to touch every single region differently, and I want to make sure you know exactly which part of this week is yours to watch. Stick around to the 6-minute mark, because that is when I am going to show you the Thursday-Friday setup that the meteorological community has been talking about quietly among themselves, and trust me, it deserves a whole lot more attention than it is getting right now. And if you make it all the way to the end, I have got one piece of safety information that is so simple, it almost sounds too obvious, but it is the single thing that has saved lives in every nocturnal severe weather event I have ever covered, and most people still do not do it. All right, let's get into it, and I want to start with tonight, because tonight is not a night to go to bed without taking a few minutes to get your house in order first. Here is what is happening at the upper levels of the atmosphere. There is a massive trough, think of it, like a giant bowl spinning in the sky that has been parked over southeastern Canada for over a solid week, just sitting over Ontario and Quebec, dragging cold Arctic air southward into the central and eastern United States day after day. That system is what forecasters call a blocking low, which is a fancy way of saying it is not going anywhere anytime soon. It is the root cause of that cold, unsettled, jacket-in-May weather pattern that has had so many of you shaking your heads this week. And here's the thing about a blocking low that most people do not realize: it does not just bring cold air. It acts like a wall that grabs any storm system coming in from the west and forces it to interact, to combine energy, to get bigger than it would on its own. That wall is exactly why tonight's setup is worth paying attention to, even if the threat where you live seems relatively low on paper, because the boundary between cold and warm air is now stretched from southern Michigan all the way through eastern Kansas. And that line is loaded. Ahead of that front tonight, the low-level jet stream is cranking up after midnight, and when I say cranking, I mean that wind energy a mile above your head is going to be howling. And that is the ingredient that turns a garden-variety thunderstorm into something that can do real damage. Storm fuel, what meteorologists call CAPE, is building to 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram across the Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio corridor tonight. And that is more than enough horsepower to produce large hail and damaging wind gusts in organized storms. Now here's what makes tonight genuinely different from your average Monday evening thunderstorm. And this is the part I want you to really hear. The threat window is midnight through 4 a.m. That is not an evening storm you can watch roll in from your porch. When severe weather fires at 2 in the morning, you cannot see a rotating wall cloud coming in the dark. Your warning window to get to shelter is a fraction of what it would be in daylight, and the whole situation moves faster than most people are ready for. So here is something I need you to actually do right now. Before you finish this video, a tornado siren that you cannot hear through your walls while you're asleep is not a warning system, plain and simple. Your phone on your nightstand with emergency weather alerts turned on, that is a warning system. And the difference between those two things has cost lives in prior events and could absolutely matter again tonight across this corridor. If you are in central Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, or Ohio, shoot. Even if you are in western Pennsylvania, set those overnight alerts before you close this video, before you brush your teeth, before you do anything else tonight. Tornado risks tonight is low, but it flat out cannot be zeroed out completely, especially in the pre-dawn hours when that low-level jet peaks and the strongest cells get their worst. So do yourself a solid and set those alerts now. Now let's talk about Tuesday, and I have to be straight with you. Tuesday is the day I have been locked into the models on all morning, because this is when the story goes from noteworthy to genuinely serious. While all of this is going on overnight, a second storm system, what forecasters call a Pacific closed low, has been crossing California today, dropping late-season snow on the High Sierra, with snow levels falling towards 7,000 to 8,000 feet. And here's the kicker: what looks like a California mountain snow event today is going to eject from the Rockies by Tuesday and transform into the severe weather engine for the Southern Plains. Same system, totally different beast at a different point in its journey. When that Pacific energy slams into the warm, moisture-loaded air sitting south of Storm 1's cold front on Tuesday, The result is the Arc-La-Tex severe weather setup in y'all. This one has the look of a loaded gun with the safety off. Dew points of 60 to near 70 degrees, that is August-level fuel arriving in the first week of May, are expected across southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, southwest Arkansas, and northwest Louisiana ahead of the developing surface low on Tuesday. And good Lord, when you look at the significant tornado parameter values climbing through Tuesday afternoon across the Red River Valley and into the Arc-La-Tex corridor, these are numbers that support significant rotating supercells, not just afternoon pop-up storms, but the organized long-track kind that forecasters lose sleep over. I need to stop right here for a second and name the cities where I am most focused for Tuesday, because you deserve precision, not just a colored blob on a risk map, but actual places where real families need to have a plan before afternoon. Texarkana, you're in the bullseye for Tuesday evening's primary severe weather window. Get your plan set before noon. Fort Smith and Little Rock, Arkansas. The surface low tracks right towards your area through Tuesday evening into the overnight hours. Jonesboro, Arkansas, Tuesday overnight is your primary window. Shreveport and Monroe. Louisiana storm activity rolls through your area Tuesday evening with an environment favorable for both large hail and tornadoes. Idabel in southeastern Oklahoma Tuesday afternoon is your earliest risk window. Now here's the thing about Tuesday night that I cannot stress enough, and buddy, this is the part that has me most concerned. The low-level jet actually peaks after sunset, meaning the tornado threat does not ease up when the sun goes down, it gets worse. Tuesday night is not a night to assume the worst has passed once it gets dark outside. And if you are in a mobile home anywhere in this corridor, I am talking to you directly, please make arrangements to be in a sturdy structure before Tuesday evening. No two ways about it. Earl from Texarkana, you and I have talked about setups like this before, and I know you take it seriously, but this one is as loaded as anything I have seen this season. So get the family to the interior room before 11 p.m., not after the sirens start going off. Now let's swing north for a minute, because while the South is watching Tuesday's outbreak, the Midwest is already dealing with its own mess today that most of the national coverage has completely overlooked. A flood watch is in effect this very moment for Upper Michigan Marquette, Alger, Baraga, Delta, Dickinson, Iron, Luce, Menominee, and Schoolcraft counties, and this is snowmelt piling on top of soil that is already completely waterlogged from April. A dense fog advisory is running across central and western Upper Michigan, with visibility already dropping below a quarter-mile Traverse City, Cadillac, Gladwin, folks. That is a genuine travel danger, not just an inconvenience, and it is happening before the next round of storms even gets here. Milwaukee and Kenosha, there is a dangerous wave advisory active on Lake Michigan today. Those orange markers you see along the shoreline are real. And if you had plans to be on the water today, I need you to stay on shore. Full stop, no kidding around. For the broader Wisconsin picture, the Rock River near Fort Atkinson, the Crawfish River at Milford, the Fox River at Berlin. These waterways are already swollen and have no room left to absorb anything. And more rain is on the way this week on top of all of it. Chicago, Aurora, Rockford, and the Kankakee corridor, you're sitting with a level 1 severe thunderstorm risk tonight, with the threat concentrated near and south of I-80, and if you are in Galesburg or over on the Iowa-Illinois border near Davenport, that orange lightning marker on the weather map today is not decorative, it means business. Peoria, Springfield, Champaign, heavy fog and low cloud deck through the day, which sounds like a nuisance. But on a day when storm development is possible after dark, low visibility during the warning window is one more reason to have those alerts set and your shelter plan confirmed before evening. South Bend, Logansport, Fort Wayne, you're in the yellow advisory zone today, and your evening hours line up with the overnight threat window, so stay weather aware and keep checking the NWS local office for updates as that cold front pushes through. Now, here is something that genuinely blew me away when I went back through the models, and I want to make sure you hear this clearly. Wednesday's severe weather threat across East Texas, Louisiana, and southern Arkansas could actually rival Tuesday's setup. Dew points near 70 degrees are expected to push all the way into Chattanooga and portions of Tennessee by Wednesday afternoon, and that is the kind of atmospheric fuel that catches people completely flat-footed because they think the main event is already behind them after Tuesday. Tyler and Waco, Texas, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, and Huntsville, Alabama. You are all in the Wednesday severe weather zone as that cold front sags further south and squeezes the last of that Gulf moisture surge out of the atmosphere. Do not let Tuesday's headlines give you a false sense of security. And the Texas Hill Country, I have said this before this season, and I will say it again, this is the area I am watching most carefully for flash flooding because the limestone terrain of the Edwards Plateau means water rises fast and mean, with very little warning when rain arrives concentrated over that geography. The Weather Prediction Center has specifically called out the Texas Hill Country to the Ohio Valley Corridor as the #1 priority flash flooding zone to monitor for the entire summer of 2026. And this week's setup is exactly the kind of event that validates every bit of that concern. Turn around, don't drown, and I mean every single time, not just when the water looks deep, but every single time you come up on a low water crossing where you cannot see the bottom because what happened in 2025 in this exact terrain showed us how fast it goes from passable to fatal. The Mississippi Valley, Ohio Valley, and Tennessee Valley are all in the heavy rainfall zone Wednesday through Friday. Hitting ground that already soaked up above normal precipitation throughout all of April and saturated ground plus additional heavy rain is not a forecast. That is just physics. Dale Simmons over in Kansas City asked about Wednesday and Dale. Your area is in that transition zone where the storm energy starts to ease off through the evening, but the flooding concern picks up right behind it. So keep an eye on the smaller creeks and drainage corridors, not just the big river gauges. Now, folks, I want to take a breath here for a second because what I am about to walk you through is the part of this forecast that I genuinely think is going to surprise the most people, especially if you live along the Northeast coast and you have been thinking this whole thing is a Midwest and South story. Here is what has been said quietly inside the meteorological community for the past 2 days. Thursday and Friday could be the biggest deal of this entire week, and the target is the East Coast, from the Carolinas all the way up through New England. This is the merger I told you about at the top of the video. Storm 1 and Storm 2 come together over the Northeast, and the Weather Prediction Center is explicitly flagging cyclogenesis as the potential outcome, which means a low-pressure system forming or intensifying rapidly right along the coast. Think about what that means in plain language. Two massive atmospheric systems combine their energy over the same geography at the same time, and what they produce together is significantly bigger and more impactful than either one could create on its own. That is not a weather cliche. That is just how physics works. New York City, Philadelphia, Boston, the Connecticut and Rhode Island coastlines. The late week merger needs to be on your radar for coastal flooding and wind impacts. And anywhere from North Carolina northward through Cape Cod and coastal Maine, wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour are on the table if the storm track shifts even slightly onshore. And here's something else the models are hinting at that I want to flag: early late season snow is possible in the Adirondacks and the higher terrain of northern New England through this event, because that blocking low over Canada is still sitting there, keeping cold air locked in place even as the storm energy explodes along the coast. Carol from Richmond, Virginia, you asked about the late week outlook, and here is my honest answer. Thursday and Friday are the days to watch closely for your area. Your region does not see this kind of atmospheric collision very often, and I want you to have your alerts active before Wednesday evening, not Wednesday night, before Wednesday evening. Now let me come back to that West Virginia tornado because I promised at the beginning I would, and because the lesson it carries is much bigger than one twister in one state on one spring afternoon. A decade of quiet in a mountainous Appalachian state. Think about what that means for the people who live there, an entire generation of residents who may have grown up without a single personal experience of what a real tornado warning in their county actually means in practice. And here's the broader pattern context that has forecasters genuinely on edge in 2026 Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and now West Virginia states that have not historically been tornado country are getting hit directly, because that blocking low over Canada is steering storm systems on tracks that bypass Tornado Alley entirely. What that means for you, plain and simple, if you live east of the Mississippi and you have been thinking severe weather is somebody else's problem, this is your season to update that mental map, because the geography of risk has shifted, and it has shifted for real. Bob from Pittsburgh and Sandra from Morgantown, same message for both of you. And I mean this sincerely, this week's pattern is stretching severe weather into the Appalachians in a way most people in your region are not mentally prepared for. And mental preparation is honestly half the battle when you have 8 minutes to act. Severe weather does not respect the mental map people have drawn about where it usually happens. It never has. And this spring, it is proving that point over and over again across states that have not been in the headlines this way in years. So here is where we are at, and I want to give you this clearly because this is a complex week and I do not want anyone to feel like they have to track all of it at once. Focus on your window, get your plan set for your window, and come back for updates as each chapter unfolds. Tonight through early Tuesday, if you are in central Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, or Ohio, the midnight to 4 a.m. window is the one to be ready for. Large hail and damaging winds are the primary hazards. Tornado risk is low but real. And those overnight alerts need to be set before you go to sleep tonight. No exceptions. Tuesday daytime into Tuesday night, Arklatex corridor is the primary bullseye. Texarkana, Fort Smith, Little Rock, Shreveport, southeastern Oklahoma. Set your overnight alerts before Tuesday afternoon. Know your shelter spot. And if you're in a mobile home in this corridor, make alternative arrangements before the evening hours because this is not optional. Wednesday through Friday, heavy rainfall and flash flooding risk from the Mississippi Valley through the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Know your flood-prone roads, know your low-water crossings, turn around, don't drown every single time. No excuses, no exceptions, because no appointment is worth your life. Thursday and Friday, the merger produces cyclogenesis over the Northeast. Coastal wind and flooding risk from North Carolina through New England. Late season interior snow possible in the Adirondacks and northern New England. Monitor the track as it comes into focus because the difference between an offshore storm and an onshore one is enormous for coastal communities. And if you put anything in the ground this spring thinking winter was done, cover your plants every night through May 12th because Cleveland and Pittsburgh already dropped to the upper 20s last Saturday night, and the cold is not finished with the northern tier yet. Here is the bottom line on this whole week. This is one of the more complex and consequential week-long weather setups I have covered this entire spring, not because every region gets hammered at once, but because different regions get their worst at different times, and the window to get ready for each one is shorter than most people think. If you know somebody in Texarkana, Fort Smith, Little Rock, Shreveport, or anywhere in the Arklatex impact zone, do me a solid and send this to them today. Because a heads up from someone they trust is worth 10 push notifications they are going to swipe away without reading. Honest to goodness, the folks who come through weeks like this just fine are almost always the ones who knew what was coming and had a simple plan. The folks who get caught out are the ones who figured it would not be as bad as everyone was saying. And the storm never once cared about that. And listen, if you want me to pull a specific breakdown for your city as this week develops, drop your city and state in the comments. Because I will be going through every single one and coming back to you directly as the models sharpen and new warnings come in. That is not a throwaway line, I actually do it. Charge your phone right now and get your backup battery ready when power outages hit multiple regions inside the same 24-hour window. The very last thing you want is to be sitting at 12% when that alert comes through at 2 in the morning. Remember what we talked about at the very top, West Virginia's first tornado in 10 years. 40 million Americans in the path of a two-storm merger and August-level storm fuel arriving in May. All of that is unfolding this week, and your window to get ready is closing faster than those storms are moving. Stay safe out there. Take care of the people around you. Go knock on your neighbor's door if they are the kind of folks who do not watch the weather. And we will see you in the next update as this whole thing continues to develop.